So today we're going to continue our discussion into algebraic expressions and algebraic equations. And maybe this video should be titled Part times whole equals number, because that's really the section it's in. It's often called that. But it's really typically misunderstood also. So I'd like to call it English to math. It really can be a second language. We're learning to communicate from English to math and math to English and really start to solve some problems. And we can start with one like this. Half of $10 is blank. If I said I was going to give you half of $10, how much would I give you? $5. It is just a matter of making the conversion. But when we start lining them up in a little bit different formats, we tend to start to get a little confused. 7/8 of 24 is what number? 2/3 of what number is 32? What number of 18 is 24? And often students sometimes have memorized techniques to try to survive. You know, if the numbers are together, I multiply. If they're apart, I divide. I don't remember if I divide the top by the bottom. We pause here and we set up a system. And the first thing is stop and think of an estimate. Always start with an idea where the answer should be. Even if your estimate's off, it gives you a baseline to think if you're on the right track. And then we're always going to make an equation in my classroom. In fact, that's worth more points than the answer. We want to make sure we make the conversion from English to math. Step 3, we'll solve the equation, because once you have an equation, what to do is determined by the equation. We don't have to try to remember if we're multiplying or dividing, what by what. What we do is we write a first order equation and then we solve the first order equation. And then a big step is we'll check our answer. We'll check the equation and we'll check the expression, the English expression, to see if our estimate makes sense. And again, if I throw up the previous slide, we're going to solve these 3 problems, all right? And I have all the steps pre-written out for those. So I want to start with the estimate part here and just take a quick guess on these. Part of 7/8 of 24. If it was 1 of 24, 1 times 24, it'd be 24. 7/8 is less, so this has to be less than 24. All right, if I take a look at the next expression and just do the estimate, those are not the answers, just the estimate. 2/3 of a number is 32. All right, well, if I took a whole of 32, it'd be 32. I'm taking part, so the number has to be greater than 32. Part of 50, if I took half of 50, it'd be 25. 2/3 is about half, so it has to be there, all right? What number of 18 is 24? Well, 1 of 18 is 1/18. That's 18. It's more than 18. So this has to be greater than 1. And again, this comes with practice, but you slow down and you make an estimate. Now, if I tackle the first problem, and you can try that if you want to finish it, try to convert English to math, and I can do that by just blocking my arm here. We know from what we said before, and I changed what number to WN. I'm a lazy math teacher. I know it was less than 24, but I also know half of 24 is 12. Because we know these halves are easy. So I know the answer is between 12 and 24. Step 2, write the equation. 7/8 of 24 is what number? 7/8 of 24 is what number? And I always get asked by students, is always equal? No. But a lot of times you can tell where the equal sign is. It's just a matter of practicing and going. And on these little English sentences, typically is equals. Step 3, solve that first order equation. Okay, well, the variable's already by itself. So I have nothing to solve. I simply have to multiply the fractions on the left side. And I get n is 21. Switch the sides, n equals 21. Does it make sense in my formula? 7/8 times 24 equals 21. That checks out. Does it make sense in my English expression? 7/8 of 24 equals 21, is 21. And the answer is yes. And again, that is how we check our answer, step 4. So we go to those last 2 problems. And again, you can try to make some attempts on these, all right? We're going to work a lot of these so we feel comfortable, that we get used to writing the equation. 2/3 of what number is 32? And again, we agreed it was greater than 32. I know half of 50 is 25, so I know it's about 50-ish. All right. I write the equation. 2/3 of what number is 32? And when I write the equation in red, dropping the multiplication symbol, making the 2/3 a fractional coefficient of this one term. And again, you have to see this as one term. There is no addition sign here. That's one thing. So we write it as 2/3 n typically. We multiply both sides by the reciprocal or the multiplicative inverse, 3/2. I get n is 48. Feeling pretty good because it's close to my estimate. I check it back in the expression and the equation. I just wrote the expression on the board, and that checks out. On the other side, what number of 18 is 24? And again, from our estimate, we know it was 1. I know I can think of about a quarter of 18. A quarter of 20 is 5. 5 plus 18 is about 23. I want it to be about 24. So I know it's about 1.25. 1 1/4 for a fraction. Step 2, write an equation. And again, this is a good point, or I want to make a point. Some teachers insist on x. Some teachers insist on n. I just want a variable. Some symbol of an unknown. So I went with smiley face this time. Smiley face, what number, times of 18 is 18, is, in this case, is equals. 24 is 24. We converted English to math. I rewrite step 3. I usually I like a numerical coefficient, so I change these because I can multiply in any order, and I have 18 smiley face equals 24. I multiply by the multiplicative inverse of 18, 1/18. Or I could have divided both sides by 18. And I get 24/18. That is a fraction. It can be simplified. So I take out 6 and I get 4/3. If I check on my calculator, 4 divided by 3, fraction is division, division is fractions. 4 divided by 3 is 1.3 repeating. That sure is close to 1.25. I check it in my equation, and then I check it in my English sentence, and it checks out. Again, part times whole equals number is simply us converting English to math, and eventually math back to English. It's like method of communication. Don't memorize techniques. Learn to write the first order equation.